Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Here's today's prophecy update. Attorney General Loretta Lynch announced at the United Nations that her office would be working in several American cities to form what she called the Strong Cities Network, a law enforcement initiative that would encompass the globe. This appears to be a step toward establishing a global police force, especially when we're looking at the formation of a one world governmental system, and many people believe we should move into world government. This is an interesting development. From another front, in an exclusive hour-long sit-down interview with Breitbart News, 91-year-old conservative icon and living legend Phyllis Schlafly declared that Donald Trump is the only hope to defeat the kingmakers, and detailed why she believes Trump alone will return the government to the people. She warned that if immigration is not stopped, we're not going to be America anymore. Now, that's interesting in a political year when the wave is against the establishment. Americans have sensed that we're voting for Tweedledee or Tweedledum. And no matter whether the Republicans are in power or the Democrats are in power, it seems like the same old keeps on happening. Well, Schlafly says the only one, in her opinion, that's going to stop that trend would be an outsider like Donald Trump. That's not an endorsement from Endtime Ministries, by the way. Then we hear from the Bishop of Stockholm, Sweden. She has proposed a church in her diocese to remove all signs of the cross and put down markings instead showing the direction to Mecca for the benefit of Muslim worships. Now, this is in a Christian church. Eva Brune, who was made the world's first openly lesbian bishop by the Church of Sweden in 2009, and has a young son with her, quote, wife and fellow lesbian priest Gunilla Linden, made the suggestion to make those of other faiths more welcome. You might want to know that the Church of Sweden is the Lutheran Church of Sweden. Well, if that doesn't have your head swimming, we're going to have a very special program today. You may have heard by now that the last Republican debate before the Iowa caucuses, which will be held on February the 1st, that debate is going to be held tonight. We want your participation today. If you could ask one question at the Republican debate this evening, what would it be and why? Now, the reason I'm doing this is because we live in the time of the most rapid prophetic fulfillment in the history of the world. You and I are in the end time right now. I can prove it. I mean, there are so many prophecies given specifically for the end time. And when we say end time, we mean the time right before the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus Christ to the church, not the time before the destruction of the world. That's not what we're talking about. But we're talking about the time of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus. So when we say that all the signs are coming to pass right now, we have been given many, many prophecies about things that must happen. For example, the rebirth of the nation of Israel in our world. I mean, this is absolutely huge. For 2,000 years, there was no nation of Israel. Yet the Bible specifically prophesies that the nation of Israel would be reborn. Ezekiel chapter 37 is one place. There's more than one place. But Ezekiel 37 gives us one of those prophecies that Israel will be regathered into her homeland from the places where she has been scattered, from the north, the south, the east, and the west. And it also prophesies that Israel will never be banished from her homeland again. Now that's an interesting thing when you have such people as Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran saying that Israel is going to be wiped off the map, and many other people just avowing we are going to pressure Israel until she no longer ceases to exist. Well, when we have the prophecies of the Bible that tell us the exact opposite, well, that's one of the things the prophecies do for us. Furthermore, the Bible teaches that in the days of Great Britain, the United States, Russia, Germany, and the European Union, that Jesus Christ is coming back while those forces are in power on the earth. Obviously, that's right now. The Bible also teaches that there will be a one world government set up just before the second coming of Jesus Christ. We see people pushing right now through the process of globalization for a global government system. They say the nation-state system is outdated and it's also too dangerous in this day of nuclear weaponry. They say that nations inherently end up in conflict, and therefore, because they all have their own militaries, war becomes inevitable. The theory is get rid of all the nations so that there's only one global nation, the United Nations, and only one army possessed by that one nation, so the army would not fight by itself, and theoretically we would have peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Now they're trying to accomplish this right now, moving us as fast as we're willing to go, but we're not willing to go there at all. Many of us are not. Consequently, it has to be done very skillfully and very quietly, and that's what they're in fact doing right now. The Bible says that's going to be another thing that will be in existence right before the second coming. It also states there will be a time when everyone will have a number without which they cannot buy or sell. There are several of the candidates that are campaigning for the Real ID Act, which is nothing but a national ID number, which America has resisted for the last 230 years. Now they're trying to sneak it in the back door. They're not calling it a national ID. They're calling it the Real ID, or maybe it's a global ID. Nevertheless, that's another thing the Bible prophesies. The Bible prophesies a time will come when you'll have to have a number in order to hold a job. Well, are we there? If not, almost there. And if E-Verify is implemented, which several of the candidates are openly campaigning for, if that is implemented, then we will have our national ID number required to hold a job. What's that mean? That means you have to have a job in order to buy or sell. And the prophecy of the Bible says in the last times, just before the second coming, during the last 3.5 years, there will be a system set up that you'll have to have a number in order to be able to buy or sell. Now that's just a few of the prophecies. In case you need another one, the Bible says that there will be a huge explosion of homosexuality just before the second coming of Jesus Christ. The societal condition that was the most prominent in the days of Lot. He lived in a city called Sodom. You recognize the name? Well, he lived there. And the Bible says, as it was in the days of Lot, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Ladies and gentlemen, without beating around the bush, I just want to tell you straight from the shoulder, you are in the end time at this moment. I'm not here to tell you the end time is coming. I'm here to tell you we are in it right now. So how much time do we have left? Well, until the Antichrist, at least 4 years. Until the second coming of Jesus Christ, at least 8 years. Until the Battle of Armageddon, at least 8 years. Somewhere in that vicinity. But when the Antichrist comes to power, the Great Tribulation will begin. So since that could be 4 years, now hear me clear. I did not say the Antichrist will be here in 4 years. I said we have at least 4 years. It could be 5, 6, 7, or 8. But it looks like we're approaching that time right now. And before the Antichrist gets here, we've got to have a war that will wipe out 1/3 of the human race. So within the next 1 to 4 years, and I would rather think 1 rather than 4. I can't tell you that for sure. I can only tell you the Bible says it's coming. There's no date on it. But we do have a prophecy with a timeline attached. When the Palestinians and the Israelis sign a peace agreement creating a new Palestinian state, from the signing of that agreement, there will be 7 years to the second coming of Jesus and the Battle of Armageddon. There will be 3.5 years from the signing of that agreement to the Antichrist and the beginning of the Great Tribulation period. So you can see right now there's a lot of pressure on Israel to create a Palestinian state. How quickly all that pressure will cause Israel to cave, I cannot tell you. Nevertheless, for all of those reasons, the person that is elected in our next presidential election will undoubtedly participate in all of these events as they're coming to culmination. Now, I have in my backdrop today pictures of several of the presidential candidates that will be participating in tonight's debate. In no way is their picture here because we favor these candidates. We don't endorse political candidates here at Endtime Ministries. However, these are the top 4 in the most recent polls, is the reason their pictures are here. Obviously, there are others, good candidates, such as Ben Carson, Carly Fiorina, Mike Huckabee, and many others that are not here on the board. So just wanted to make that really clear to you. But what I want to do today is have an open discussion with all of our listeners. And by the way, you can start calling right now. The number to call to be on the air with me, 877-END-TIME. But here's the question. What are the most critical issues facing our nation right now? As you are listening to, watching, or reading about tonight's debate, what are you looking for? What is that 1 or 2 hot button issue that would say, that's the man that I believe I should vote for, or that's a person I would never vote for? What are the make or break issues with you? And perhaps there's more than one, or perhaps you like somebody, but on one point they're really weak or off from where you are persuaded they should be. So how are you approaching? What are you looking for in tonight's debate? And that's what I want to hear from you. And please start calling right now. That's the big question. What are you looking for? What issue is most prominent in your mind in tonight's debate? I want to have this discussion because sometimes it helps us to talk together about these things. Now, we have open lines, so please call us, 877-END-TIME. And while you're thinking about this, now the Iowa caucus is February the 1st. So as you can see, we're just a couple of weeks away from that time right now, and it will be here before you know it. But let me just give you a few of the issues in case you need to have your mental pump primed. Same-sex marriage and civil unions. Is that a make or break issue with you? Or do you believe Israel should be pressured to allow the establishment of a Palestinian state in the West Bank, also known biblically as Judea Samaria? Wouldn't you like to know what each of the candidates really think? Do they think Israel should be forced to trade land for peace? And I mean their promised land according to the Bible? Big question, because many of these candidates do believe they should trade land for peace. George W. Bush believed it. Bill Clinton believed it. Barack Obama is so bold that he says Israel should return to 1967 borders except for certain land swaps. And he vigorously objected to any building in Jerusalem even, even though Jerusalem was annexed by Israel in 1980. Here we are, 36 years later, and he's still saying, oh no, you don't have a right to Jerusalem. And would you like to know if the candidate would pressure Israel to share Jerusalem with the Palestinians, to give them half of Jerusalem for the Palestinian capital? Would you like to know what they really will do about that? Now, these are all prophecy issues as well as end time issues. So those are the types of questions that I would be asking, because George W. Bush, who lives right here in Dallas, he promised adamantly, the day of my inauguration, I will move the American capital in Israel to Jerusalem. But he was inaugurated twice, and he went silent as the graveyard. Never did it. I wish we could have him on this program and ask him why. Were there powers stronger than him that said, no, you don't dare? Or were there others that were maybe deemed to be wiser than him? Was it his own father that said, son, if you do that, all Hades is going to break loose? I don't know. We've never heard from him. He's quiet about it since that time. Nevertheless, now, what about a national ID? Ronald Reagan said, a national ID? We're not doing that. That's the mark of the beast. It's in the congressional record. I looked it up. They had a cabinet meeting. They were wrestling with, of all things, immigration, the same thing we're wrestling with today. And one of the cabinet members said, the only way you're going to stop this is give everyone a national ID. If they have that, they can't work. And Reagan quickly said, we're not doing that. That's the mark of the beast. Well, guess what? Several of the candidates have openly endorsed now the Real ID Act, which is nothing but a national ID. That's all it is. Real ID is national ID. And the whole purpose behind this is control, control, control. Why has this become necessary? Because we didn't control. We didn't do what we should have done. So now then we're wrestling with what we don't want to do. Because if you control your borders, you don't have to worry about it. All right, well, we're ready to go to the phones now. And we're going, first of all, to Walter calling from Louisiana. Hello, Walter. Walter, are you with me?
Hello?
Yes, Walter, you're on the air.
Yeah,
What's on your mind?
I got you now. I realize I'm on. I did ask the question, and I need an answer to why in the Republican debates you never hear any discussion of climate change such as the Democrats. I personally don't believe in climate change, but I would like to know why the Republican candidates find the subject matter taboo and don't discuss it, even if they're against it. I think the public needs to know if they are for or against. And I think it would do them some good to go into verbal battle with the Democrats with this falsehood of climate change.
Walter, I absolutely agree with you. I think it's a critical issue because climate change is more than a climate issue. Climate change is the road toward world government, because in order to control the climate, supposedly, you've got to have international laws that are presided over by the United Nations and enforced by the United Nations. Therefore, you are handing a huge weapon into the hands of those who intend to install a world government. So I'm absolutely with you on this, Walter. We need to hear from them, and I appreciate you bringing it up. And oh, by the way, I do know for certain that Jeb Bush believes in climate change. I also know that Governor Christie is a believer in climate change. I've heard Donald Trump make fun of it, and as though it's not an important issue. The American people, it's way down their list because they don't believe that it is an imminent threat. Al Gore said that 2016 was the year when was a make or break year. If we hadn't fixed it by then, that we were going to be over the falls. Well, here we are, and it still feels pretty good to me. Anyway, great point, Walter. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Let's go on now to Cynthia calling from Washington. Hello, Cynthia.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to pose these questions.
Okay, we want to hear from you.
Okay. What you were saying about climate change, that wasn't my original question, but you're right. Carbon credits are going to be the new currency. And we already know now that Obama wants to become head of the UN. He has already campaigned in this direction. And with the current leader leaving office in 2016, the new leader would take place in 2017. So we already know Obama wants that position, and he has been positioning himself very well. You were right in saying that the one world government, the one world currency, this climate change fiasco is bringing that about. Are you still there?
Yes, I sure am.
Okay, well, I live in Washington, and in listening to my state representatives, we know that this debacle that is taking place in Oregon over some farmers who will not abdicate their land to the government is over mineral rights, which we have sold. Bush sold mineral rights to, I believe it was Australia, and Clinton sold mineral rights to Russia. They want this mountain that these people are on. So the big thing is, for this new president, how involved are we going to be in the UN? Are we going to keep selling off our property because we are indebted to these nations for carrying our debt? Are we going to keep selling off mineral rights like we have done to Australia and to Russia? Are we going to be involved in the UN as this current president and previous ones have sold us down the river to be a part of this?
Cynthia, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
If President Obama managed to get himself elected as Secretary General of the United Nations,
Yes.
I looked it up before I came to the program today, and that decision is normally made about 30 days before the term of the present Secretary General expires.
Yes.
That means that it would be made late November, early December, while President Obama is still in office and while his UN ambassador is still running things at the United Nations. So that means that we would probably not use our veto power to stop Obama, almost certainly not use our veto power to stop Obama. So if, in fact, he got in, do you believe that the next president, whoever that person was, should pull the United States of America out of the United Nations?
Yes.
And do you see any candidate on the horizon that would have the backbone in order to stand up and do that?
Possibly Ted Cruz, but I don't know where he is on that. I like the guy.
Okay. All right. Well, those are the kinds of questions we're all wrestling with, and that's some of the things we'll be looking for tonight. Anything else, Cynthia?
Nope, that's it. Thanks for airing my question
Hey,
and my concern.
good input, and I'm so glad that you brought up carbon credits and what a prominent role they will play if, in fact, which I've never thought would happen, but I can believe anything now since same-sex marriage has been approved. I never thought that would happen either. But now that that's happened, I've thought about these carbon credits, that all of us would have a carbon limit upon our lives, on our businesses, on our homes, and that if we exceed those limits, that we would have to buy carbon credits, and that carbon credits would become the new currency. Well, it's already happened in Europe. They're wanting to bring it here to America. Now, if President Obama had the votes, we would have this right now. He knew going into the last meeting where they had all this climate change conference, he knew he could not get this approved through our Congress. So he's done everything on a voluntary basis, but he's using public opinion to intimidate people and force them to adopt these different goals. Once he would have gotten power to be able to enforce these things, then he would like to impose them on us where they're mandatory rather than a choice for us. Once that happens, When you exceed your carbon credit limit, you'll have to buy additional. It'll be a big tax, and it'll be a massive goal of his to achieve wealth redistribution. So that's where we are right now. And ladies and gentlemen, don't think it couldn't happen. I'm telling you, things are shifting unless we have the election of someone that'll bring us back to American values, away from global governance, back to American sovereignty. Well, we're in trouble. That's all there is to it. We're getting close to a break like right now. All of you that are there on hold, please stay right there. We definitely want to hear from you. However, let me take a moment to tell you that Judy and I are going to be leading a trip to Israel and to Europe this coming March the 24th. It'll be a 16-day trip. Now, if you can't do the whole 16 days, you can do Israel only, so that option is still available. But let me tell you, if you can do the whole 16 days, that's where you want to be. 12 days in Israel, 4 days in Europe. We're calling it the Israel Holy Roman Empire Tour. And the reason we're doing this is because the Bible is explicit that the Antichrist and the false prophet will both come out of the Holy Roman Empire. We're going to visit the places, and we'll be talking as we go about the Holy Roman Empire, explaining to you exactly what has happened in the past and what is going to happen in the very near future. Just to let you know, the Holy Roman Empire was reborn on November the 3rd, 2009, and most people missed it, just like most people missed the birth of the second coming of Jesus. If you're interested in going with Judy and me to Israel and the Holy Roman Empire, the number to call, 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Simply ask to speak to someone about the tour. They'll give you all the information that you need. One more time, the number, 1-800-363-8463.
This trip was a special experience for me. My study of the Bible has been enhanced after seeing Israel. The guides and planners for this trip did an excellent job of taking care of us. The hotels and furnished meals were top-notch. This is a trip of a lifetime. Sign up and go. Bert from Arizona. Come with us as we walk in the footsteps of Jesus and learn about the end-time story on our Israel Holy Roman Empire tour. The Bible prophesies that the Antichrist and false prophet will come out of the Holy Roman Empire. We will be touring the capital of the European Union in Brussels, Belgium, where the rebirthed Holy Roman Empire was fulfilled. We will also visit the Charlemagne Cathedral in Aachen, Germany, who was the first emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. We will be touring the Hall of the Caesars in Frankfurt, Germany, and much more. When we get to Israel, we will see the Mount of Olives, the Garden Tomb, the Temple Institute, Bethlehem, the Western Wall, the Sea of Galilee, the Mount of the Beatitudes, and more. Irvin and Judy hope you will come with them and experience the Israel Holy Roman Empire tour to share one of their favorite places on earth with you. Call 1-800-END-TIME or go to endtime.com for more information.
If your radio station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com to continue to listen to today's broadcast.
In case you're just joining us, we're talking today about tonight's Republican presidential debate. It'll be the last debate before the votes begin to fly. Iowa's caucus will be on February the 1st. It will be a critical debate. Sometimes debates make or break a candidate. As you're watching or listening to tonight's debate, what are you really looking for? Is there one thing that would really turn the tide for you? What are some of the questions? If you were the one asking the questions in tonight's debate, what are some of the questions that you would be asking? That's what we're discussing today, and we're asking for your input. The number to call to be on with me, 877-END-TIME. That's 877-363-8463. So please call. There are some open lines. Let's get back to our phones now. Deborah is calling from North Dakota. Hello, Deborah. Deborah, are you with me?
Hello.
You're on the air.
Hi.
Deborah, if you'd turn your radio off,
Hello?
it would help because you're getting a feedback.
Can you hear me?
I hear you well. Go ahead.
Okay, that's great.
So what's your question, or what's your question for the debate tonight?
I believe that the United States, as an economic power, if we are in debt to China, if we need Muslim oil, we are subject to their influence. I believe we need to stop outsourcing jobs, manufacture in the United States. We just need to get a hold of preserving this country.
Yeah. I think I understand where you're coming from, Deborah. I'm still getting a lot of feedback from you. So let me go ahead and comment about what you're saying, because you bring up a really critical issue. And that is, for many years, we have been going in debt. Originally, we were a creditor nation. People owed us. But now we've changed all that, and we are a debtor nation. Our debt is right at $20 trillion. The debt has doubled in the last 7 years under Barack Obama. Any illusion that the economy is doing okay has been created by spending more than we make. Can you imagine over the last 7 years in your own life, if you were making $50,000 a year, but you spent $100,000 a year, and that's what's been going on, how deep in debt? Well, you wouldn't have done it because they would have already driven you into bankruptcy by now. However, because we have the ability to print money, we've been able to get away with it for a while. But what I think Deborah is saying to us, we desperately need to get our business house and our financial house in order. So if that's how you feel, which one of these candidates could best do that? Now, we know we've gone steadily in debt under Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama. We've got that same problem again. No matter whether it's Republican or Democrat, you get the same old thing. But we have some anti-establishment candidates this time who claim that they will turn the tide. So if you're looking for that, which candidate would you think would be the best to make that happen? Deborah, are you still with me, and do you have an opinion? Okay, I think Deborah's left us. Nevertheless, I'm sure that many of us are looking for this. Now, there are many important issues in this presidential election, but that's one of them, because if we don't get our financial house in order, then America can no longer be the force in our world that it needs to be. So that's going to be a huge question. Which one of these candidates has the economic experience and also the backbone and also the ability? Which one is not beholden to the big banks? Who's not under the power of Chase Manhattan Bank or Chase Bank or Goldman Sachs and the big bankers that can make you or break you financially? Is there anybody out there that does not need their approval before they govern in a particular way? Big question. Let's return to the phones now. Let's go to Montana. Dan's calling. Hello, Dan.
Hi, Irvin. I have a comment and a question for you and your viewers. And for the debate, I think it's important that who do you think of all the presidential candidates most represent the views of the Constitution Constitution as it was written. And it seems to me the only way we can put a stop to abortion and the Second Amendment violations and other such things is to follow the Constitution, which has its roots in the Bible. And that's what I'm going to be looking for. And it seems to me this is one of the most important elections that's coming up. And in my view, Ted Cruz seems to be the one that talks about the Constitution the most. And that's my question and comment.
Appreciate it very much, Dan. And I think you've really hit on something that can sort of encompass several issues, and that is, what about the Constitution? What about freedom of speech? What about freedom of religion? In other words, if a person doesn't want to bake a cake and say, congratulations on your marriage, Bob and Dick, if you don't want to write that kind of a cake, can the government make you? If you're in the photography business and someone wants you to film a same-sex wedding, can you decline? I mean, these are issues. President Obama says, no, you can't. You can't decline. You are bound to go. And they've already shut down some businesses. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a huge issue. And then what about the right to bear arms? Our forefathers gave us that right so that we could defend ourselves. Now then, there's a move on to register every gun. They're doing it by going through the back door. They simply have to have a background check on everybody that buys a gun, but in so doing, they're registering all the guns. They're finding out where all those guns are. Well, if there was ever a tyrant get a hold of the government of the United States of America, can you imagine if there were trouble in a particular place, the rationale, hey, we're going to pick up the guns. We're not going to allow this thing to move into a full-blown revolution. And the next thing you know, there's a knock on your door and everybody else's door. I mean, these are part of the things that are at stake here. When you deal with who really believes in the Constitution, they all say they do. But who really does? I mean, every president has had to raise his hand and vow to uphold the Constitution of the United States. But President Obama vowed to do it and then turned right around and did not do it. I mean, our laws, our border laws, he has willingly and openly violated. He has extended the authority of the EPA in order to cover things that he couldn't get Congress to pass. He can't get a law for it, so he just uses executive order. He's not the only one that's used executive orders, but that doesn't make it right. You should have a law before you act. The president is the executive, not the legislative branch of government. It is the executive branch. The Congress makes the laws, and the president is forced to enforce them whether he agrees with them or not. Now, that's something that's gotten lost, because some presidents say, I'm only going to enforce the laws I agree with. Well, that's not the oath that you took when you took that Pledge of Allegiance and that pledge to uphold the Constitution. So it is so critical that we do get someone who truly believes in the Constitution. Let's now go to South Carolina. Joanna's calling. Hello, Joanna.
Hi, Pastor Baxter. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for how much you encourage me all the time.
Good. Thank you for calling.
All the things we're talking about just weigh so heavy on my heart. There really are so many issues that are critically important. However, when I come down to it, I'm sorry for the tears. When I come down to it, I need to line up my life with what God's time clock and what God is doing. So as I look at the presidential candidates and things that I'm hearing from them in this debate, I want to look at where I believe God is on his prophetic time clock and all the wonderful things you've been teaching us. And so the first thing I look at is I know World War III is imminent. So I'm looking for a presidential candidate who I believe can handle that situation, someone who believes Islamic State is a first threat to the United States, not climate control or other things like that. And I'd be looking for foreign policy things and things from a candidate that would express to me that I believe he could handle World War III. And then the other things I look at, again, like I said, everything is important. You know, the debt you're talking about is important. The same-sex marriage is important to me. The borders are important to me, but yet when I look at the picture that God gives me in the future, he shows me that's where we are. He tells me we are going to be as in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. So I know that's what the world is going to look like. He tells me that we're going to have a one world government without borders. So I know we're going to be borderless. We never can be a sovereign America again from what the Bible shows us, to me. And so I'm looking at things that might protect us to keep us out of the hands of the Antichrist in the next 4, 8, and 12 years, which I believe, we're looking at 4 right now. And so the things like getting us out of the UN, because I believe that's where this control is going to come from, and that will protect us and keep us out of that influence, which I think is vitally important to us as Americans here. And, of course, supporting Israel, because that's in line with God's heart. And I believe, like I said, it is our destiny. And to keep those who don't believe in that national ID, for that is the way for that mark of the beast to be levied against. Anything we can do to halt, to stop, to forestall, anything we can do to prevent us from being under the thumb of that mark of the beast, those are like the 4 critical issues that I'm looking for, even though every single one of them are highly important to me. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, Joanna. What you're saying is there's a lot at stake right now.
There is.
Because we're so close to everything. And fortunately, the Bible does tell us that there will be some nations who resist the Antichrist and his one world governmental system. So the question is, who can we actually have elected that would be strong enough? I think that's one of the big things, is the strength of leadership. Is there anybody on the docket that would be strong enough, say, to pull us out of the United Nations? I mean, if you pulled America out of the UN, there would be people howling to high heavens, what is your problem? This is the only chance for us avoiding war, and now you're pulling us out. There would be people that would howl to high heavens. But we still need to have someone in there strong enough to do it. Wouldn't it be great if we had someone as president that really understood the prophecies of the Bible, that had been through the Understanding the End Time series, and would really govern in light of God's way and God's will? What a blessing that would be. And I'm not sure whether there's anybody right now on the docket, but I think there are some that may be close. So that's one of the things we should be looking for. Hey, listen, thank you, Joanna. We're up against another break, and we'll get to the rest of you as soon as I get back from this break. Oh, by the way, if you're not yet a partner with Endtime Ministries, we really need you in 2016. Please pick up the phone call. We'd love to have you on board. Doesn't matter how much or how small. We just need your strength. Call us, 1-800-ENDTIME, 1-800-363-8463. Who would have thought it, that the Berlin Wall is right there in the prophecies of the Bible? I'm holding here a chunk of the Berlin Wall. A friend of mine was in Berlin the night that the wall fell, November 9, 1989. He cut a piece of the wall for himself, twice this large. He was kind enough to cut it in half. He had read my book, A Message for the President, in which I had stated 3 years before this that the Berlin Wall would come down, the two Germanys would be reunited, and that would be the event that would mark the beginning of the one world governmental system called the New World Order. Now, we're studying right now, how did I know that the Berlin Wall was going to come down? Where is this in the Bible, and how did I know that would be the event that would trigger the New World Order, the one world governmental system?
Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-ENDTIME to order The Berlin Wall in Bible Prophecy.
Jesus said this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all of the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end will come. This scripture continues to inspire us as we share the Understanding the End Time series with the world. But at one point we faced a problem. Much of the world doesn't speak English. That's why we produced the Understanding the End Time series in the 8 major languages of the world: English, Spanish, French, Italian, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian. Many of you out there helped us make this translation project a reality, and we thank you with all our hearts, because now we can truly be a part of preaching the gospel of the kingdom to all the world. If there's someone in your life that speaks one of these languages and needs to hear the End Time message, get them the Understanding the End Time series, and you too can be a part of preaching the gospel of the kingdom to this world.
I want to ask you a very personal question. Are you presently a subscriber to End Time Magazine? I think most of you listening to this program probably believe that we're in the end time right now. If you were going to subscribe to one magazine, if this is true to the end time, which magazine should it be? Of course, End Time Magazine. The edition that's coming out right now, it's at the printer as I speak. We have a full 2-page spread with all the candidates listed and what their stance is on almost every issue, I think every issue mentioned so far today. We tried to hit all of the main issues, and we've researched very carefully. If we could not reach an absolute rock-solid conclusion on a given issue, we put a question mark, because we did not want to misinform you at all. So if you're not a subscriber to End Time Magazine, right now would be a great time to do it, because you will get this first edition within a matter of a week or two. So the number to call is subscribe, 1-800-END-TIME, and you can either subscribe for the physical copy, or if you prefer to get your information electronically, we have an electronic version of End Time Magazine. So give us a call. 800-END-TIME is the number to call. We're going right back to the phones now, and let's go to Pam calling from Georgia. Hello, Pam.
Hello. If I was going to ask a question of one of these candidates, I would ask, not Carly, because she's a lady and has a husband, but maybe we could ask her in a different way. How involved their spouses are going to be in their presidency. Hillary Clinton helped Bill Clinton a lot. That was in the news back then. No one ever hears too much about what she did back then anymore. And I've heard that Ted Cruz's wife is a member of or connected with the CFR, and I'd like to know, and maybe it would be good to ask how involved they've been up to their present time in their political agendas, and that's what I'd ask. What would you say? I'm going to hang up and listen.
Let me ask you a question, Pam. Are you? Oh, she's already gone. Well, I was going to ask Pam, if she is married and if her husband was the president, how involved would she be? Because, of course, it just depends. We know that the spouse of anybody has a level of influence, some much more than others. You're going to have your Hillary Clintons that are going to be almost like a co-president, and then you're going to have others that are don't see themselves in that role, don't want to be in that role. So that is a critical question. Of course, she referred to Senator Ted Cruz and the fact that his wife was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. And I think we're going to try to clear that up on this program, because I do not want to mislead you. She was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, which is dedicated to establishing a one-world socialist government. However, some of the reports say that she was only a temporary member for a specific reason. And so I do not know the truth. She also does occupy a very high position with Goldman Sachs, the most powerful banker in the world. So these are some things we need to ask these tough questions. I'll have to tell you the truth. I like Ted Cruz a lot. I like many of the things he says. I do have some concern about her position and where she really comes from and how that all meshes into their relationship. So we will try to dig some more for you. We will try to dig deeper behind, if we can get to it, and find out how much influence would Goldman Sachs have, how much influence would the Council on Foreign Relations have, if any, because we need to know. Because we've elected so many people and thought we were voting for one thing. I remember I voted for Richard Nixon originally because he was campaigning against socialism. And I voted against socialism. And he passed more social legislation than any president in the history of America up until that time. And then George W. Bush, he said, I will move the American embassy to Jerusalem the day of my inauguration. And when he said that, I thought, all right. And I voted for him. Silent, nothing, never happened. The embassy's still in Tel Aviv. So sometimes we vote for people. Now, I didn't do that with Barack Obama because I already knew that he was a socialist. Isn't it amazing what's happening right now? That here we have Hillary Clinton, and right now she has been being beaten in the polls by a avowed socialist. Could you believe in our country that we would have a socialist running? Well, the truth of the matter is, listen to their debates. Are they debating on socialist issues? No, they're not, because they're both socialist. The Democratic Party has become the Socialist Party of America. The problem is half of the Republican Party has become socialist as well. So consequently, this election may be the last chance we've got to turn the tide back away from becoming a Marxist country and becoming a true country. Let's get back to the phones real quick. I want to go now to, well, I don't see this name often except for myself, Irvin, calling from Virginia. Hello, Irvin. Irvin, are you with me?
I'm here. My question is, would the elected person who becomes president be willing to support and push the annulling of the 17th Amendment to the Constitution? And the reason I say that is it was passed in 1913 under President Wilson, who understood that in order to bring America into a socialist-type government, all elected officials would have to be elected by all of the populace. Our Constitution, Article 1, Section 3, gave the Senate and its members to the state legislatures, and that was to balance the power of government. So since 1913, we have basically had a socialistic body governing our nation because it's elected totally democratically, and there's no balance of power.
So, Irvin, could you tell our listeners exactly what the 17th Amendment says?
The 17th Amendment annulled Section 3 of Article 1 of the Constitution, and it put the election of all federal senators under the popular vote. Up until that time, up until 1913, all senators were sent to Washington by their state legislature, and therefore the state's rights were kept intact because it was the body called the legislature was the people's voice. The body called the Senate was the voice of each individual state, and they were designed to balance one another. When we took the right of the state and gave it to the people, we then have basically the basis for all socialistic governments.
Okay, well, that's something else for us to look for. Appreciate the input, Irvin. Appreciate it very much. Thank you, and we'll be looking for that tonight as well. Okay, I have time for one more. Thomas is calling from New Jersey. Hello, Thomas.
Yeah. Hello.
What's on your mind?
Yeah. The question that you asked is, which person we think it would be most properly to take over the country for the next 8 years and to bring back America to what America used to be, a Judeo-Christian country. America is leading down the hole. Me personally, the conviction and the faith, and for what the Lord is showing me, I think Donald Trump would be that man. He might not be the Christian that we wish was there, but he is the closest one that we believe he could bring this country back from the hole that is falling. I mean, Donald Trump will be the man that God has chosen. He will be the one, I believe, that will be president while the end times end is taking place, including the world, one world government. And I believe this man is the only one that could take the United States out of the United Nations. And I think not only because you don't even know it, but he's a chosen one, because further on into his presidency, he's going to have an enlightenment from God himself, hallelujah, that he's going to come to a point where he said, wait a minute, we're falling into the hands of the Antichrist. We cannot do this. And he's going to pull us right out of the one world government. And that's why the eagle wings are given to the United States, because they're not going to be part of that government. And I believe Donald Trump is the only person and the one that is most qualifiable to bring, and I never vote in my life. I never got into politics, but the Lord put this in my heart. He said, call the program and tell him what you feel that is put in your heart, and it comes from the Lord. Donald Trump is the man that could make this country and bring them back.
Thank you, Thomas. I'm out of time. We got to let you go. Well, there it is. There's a lot to think about. We know that Ben Carson is a Seventh-day Adventist. Seventh-day Adventists know quite a bit about Bible prophecy. We know that Ted Cruz knows quite a bit about the Bible. We know Mike Huckabee knows a lot about the Bible. Is there a person that God has chosen? We also know that Donald Trump has proven he's willing to swim against the tide and has the power to do it. So we'll be back here tomorrow, and I want to hear your opinions after the debate. So, we're out of time for today. Nevertheless, please become a partner with us. We need you now. The number to call, 1-800-END-TIME. God bless you all. Let's be praying for our country. Let's pray for our candidates. And I'll see you this time tomorrow.
End of the Age is a production of Endtime Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Endtime Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.